How's everybody doing? All right, today we are going to make another chill hop type lo-fi song, but this time we're going to do it on the Octatrack. And last video I did it on the Digitac, did everything on the Digitac. This time we're going to do it on the Octatrack. I was only going to do it on the Octatrack, but to be honest with you, I just picked up this sweet Analog RYTM Mk2 and I effing love it. So I wanted to use it. So we're going to go ahead and connect the devices and do it. But also this thing, the Generation Loss Mk2 from Bliss Audio. I just got it and I've never seen a pedal that has more character than this bad boy right here. I absolutely love it. So I want to use that as well. So we're going to take a sample, we're going to make it all nasty, and then we're going to add some drums to it. And then we're going to make it sound like something that's kind of musical, and it may suck, it may not suck, but hey, you know what? Who cares? We're having fun, right? We're making music. That's all that matters. All right, couple things. In order to get the Generation Loss to work and allow the, not to work, to allow the Octatrack to control it via MIDI, I had to pick up this MIDI box. All right, this thing is also made by Bliss Audio, although I think it's in combination with a company called Maris. And anyways, this thing converts the 5-pin MIDI to a TRS cable. So you do need to actually go out and get some stuff. This thing was, I want to say like 120 bucks, which for this little box, yeah, that's pretty damn pricey, but there's probably a better way to do it, but this is the only way I can figure it out. So anyways, we're going to send MIDI out of here. It's going to control all these devices. We're going to make it work. Let's do it. Let's get started. All right, before we get started, I've got a blank project here on the RYTM. I've got a blank project here on the Octatrack. We got to connect some stuff. So first thing I want to do is go into my configuration settings and go to audio control, and I want to use track 8 as a master. So yes, I always do. And then I want to use the studio configuration for the cue. What that allows me to do is, if I get out of here, all right, it allows me to press the cue button and control how much the volume, how much of the track I send to the cue out. Okay, obviously if you send something to the cue out, if you want to hear it, you got to send it back in. So we're going to go ahead and set that up. But it allows me to send stuff to the cue out and then control, and then my regular volume here is just on the left. So it allows me to do that, get that back to normal. All right, so let's start connecting stuff. So we're going to go from the stereo cue out. So I had to get this stereo cable. So it's got 2 monos, obviously, to a single TRS stereo. So that's because the Generation Loss only has a single jack. All right, it is a stereo jack, so you do need the TRS cable, but so we can convert the cue out from 2 monos, put the red on the bottom and the black on top. All right, so that's coming out, and then that's going to go into the input on the Generation Loss. All right, so now we got to get from here back in. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going to take the output of the Generation Loss. All right, and we're going to go back into, let's go into inputs A and B on the Octatrack. All right, so I've got it coming out and going back in. Now I got to make sure that that works here on the system. So let's just say I'm going to use track 1 for the audio that I want to send out. I can really use any track, it doesn't matter, but just say for shits and grins we're going to use that. So I'm going to turn down the volume all the way and leave the cue all the way up. All right, so we're out and we're coming back in. So now I have to do, let's just use track 5 since they're right across from each other. So track 5, I want to take the cue outputs because I don't want to send it twice, right? And I just want the input, right? So we're going to make that a through track. All right, so there's my through track, and it's coming into A and B, so we just got to go here, say A and B, and then I always like to turn down the other one just to make sure that we're not actually using it. All right, so when we get a sample in here, we'll test that out and make sure that it works, but it should be configured pretty good just to be able to do that. Now I also want to be able to control the generation lost via MIDI, right? So we got to send some MIDI from the Octatrack to the generation loss. So how we do that is we go from the MIDI out of the Octatrack into this lovely little expensive device called the MIDI box. All right, so it goes in on this side. All right, this device actually does need power, so we're going to grab some power real quick. I had it unplugged because I wanted to hold it, but now we need some power. All right, so we got some power. So we've got MIDI out, MIDI in. So in order to get this MIDI from this device to the generation loss, we need a TRS cable. Important, not a mono cable. It's got to be a TRS cable, not a TS cable, where it just has the tip and the sleeve. This has to have a tip, ring, and a sleeve. All right, so we're going to go out of number 1. You can control up to 3 devices this way with this box. All right, and we're getting messy here with chords, and then we're going to go to the MIDI in. No, that's the expression in. MIDI in on the generation loss. All right, so MIDI coming out of here into here, and then coming out of port 1 through the TRS cable and into the generation loss. So that's sending MIDI from here to here. Now I also want to control the analog rhythm with MIDI, right? So, and that takes a traditional MIDI cable with the 5-pin DIN thingy dink. So we're going to go from the MIDI through of the MIDI box. All right, and we're going to route that bad boy to the MIDI in of the analog rhythm. All right, so that's awesome. We've got MIDI going from the Octatrack to the analog rhythm through the MIDI box, right? But we don't have audio, so we need some audio cables. All right, so let's connect these to input C and D. So I'm going to take the main outs, the left and right outs of the analog rhythm, and we're going into the input C and D on the Octatrack. And we officially have a disaster area here with cables going everywhere. Such is life. All right, so now we've got MIDI out and in, and we've got audio out and back in. So where do we want to put our drums? Let's put our drums on track 7. All right, so let's go ahead and make that into a through track. All right, and we're coming from inputs C and D. So turn C and D on. Again, I like to crank down the volume of that. Let's get rid of the Q so we're not sending the drums out to the generation loss. In fact, let's do that for every channel. There's already done. There, let's kill it. There, let's kill it. And 2, let's kill it. 1, I want to send it out, so we've already got that set up. All right, so track 1 is good to go. All right, so we are connected. Okay, that's the good news. The rest of it from here on out is just making some music. So let's make some goddamn music. All right, so we're gonna go on track 1. I'm gonna find a piano. Let's go make it a flex track. All right, and we're gonna go out. Wow, that's weird. It actually didn't take that. All right, flex. I guess we gotta go out and get a sample first. All right, so let's see what we got. I have a pack here that has some pretty good pianos on it. Here, lo-fi chords. All right, D sharp major, B minor. Oh, that's not bad. Super chill. That's like Stranger Things. I can't, no. F sharp minor. All right, F sharp minor. I'm somewhat familiar with that key, so let's use that one. All right, so hit yes. Get back here. Let's put a trig here. All right, and there. So it's on the track. It's playing. We only have 1 bar set up right now, so we want to go ahead and hit function page and get us up to 64 steps. So now we have 4 pages. All right. Unfortunately, I have that trig set up now on every single one, which is fine. We'll get there in a minute. We're going to slice and dice this baby up. All right, so we've got it. We've got time stretch on, which is fine. All right, so there's my audio. Let's go to the amp. All right, so we're going to the amp. We're going to the slice page. We're going to hit function bank, and we're going to create a slice grid. And yes, 4 slices is what I want. Align markers at 0 crossings, yes, although it never works 100% because this is a stereo file, so the crossings have to be at 0 on both the left and right sides in order for it to work, but it's fine. All right, that's 1, that's 2, 3, 4. Here, let's hear the whole thing. All right, I think I have an idea. All right, I think I know what I'm gonna do. All right, so let's go ahead and set up some trigs. So trig number 1, oops, I turned it off. Trig number 1 is going to be, we gotta make sure this is in slice mode now. So double click on that, go to note, and let's turn our slice on. The length is the length of the slice. Loop is set to auto, which is fine. So now what we do is we have to hold down and set what's our start slice gonna be. It's gonna be, I like slice 2 better than I like slice 1. Ooh, all right, so our tempo is way too high. So let's go ahead and hit tempo. Let's crank that bad boy down. So this thing was in like, what was it, 76? Let's do a little bit slower than that. Let's like 74. Let's try that. All right, so that sounds good. Page 2, I think I liked slice 4. And then page 3, I think I like slice 1. And then page 4, I think it was slice 3. Let me take the attack off a little bit to get rid of those clicks. All right, cool. I can live with that. All right, so we've got our pattern down. Now what we want to do is let's mess with this bad boy through the generation loss. All right, so first things first, we are going to turn the level down so it's only going through the Q outs. All right, so it's going to go out through the Q outs and it's going to come back in on track 5. Right, and we may need to crank the volume on this, but it's going to come back in on track 5 through inputs A and B. And let's hear what that sounds like. Let's turn it on first. Oh, what are we missing? We're missing a trig. Let's add a trig. Oh, wrong page. Let's add a trig. All right. There we go. All right, so now it's coming through. I'm just going to crank this so we can hear it nicely. We can crank that down later because we're going to add some gain to it. So it's coming through here, but I haven't done anything on the generation loss yet. So let's start messing with some of the knobs. So we've got a bunch of cool little knobs we can mess with here. This one's called Wow. I'm going to crank it and then dial it back. All right, so that's obviously a little bit too much, so let's dial it back. You can hear that warbly. Just want it off pitch just a little bit. All right, there we go. I like that. So next one down is called Flutter. And as you can imagine, it's going to add some tight warbles to it. Let's dial it back. Again, you can go nuts with this stuff, but overkill sometimes tends to creep in. All right, cool. Next one over, we've got saturation. So we're gonna add some distortion to it, add some overdrive. Let's crank it. Yeah, clearly too much. Let's pull it back. Nice. All right, next one to the right is failure. So this is gonna make it just do all sorts of nastiness. Let's crank it. Yeah, you can hear it just dropping out. That's pretty sweet. Let's dial it back. Alright, got some occasional failures in there. The other one is this model knob, and what they've included, if you look at the documentation, they've included, what, 12 different models, and all they are really are EQ settings to make it sound like certain kind of vintage, either VHS or cassette players, which is pretty sweet. So let's dial through some of those. Some low end, so the high end is gone on that one. More so on that one. Way more so on that one. So it looks like they just completely cranked the high end and took it off. It sounds like it's in the next room, but you can still hear like the bassy parts of it. Oh, that's kind of cool. It's got a chorusy type of flavor to it. I like that. This one's a little bit more open, high end and low end. So now they're cranking the low end away. This is like all high end. It's kind of a mixture. That one's kind of cool. So here's how I think I want to use this. For my intro, I want it super old sounding, like off of an old cassette. So we'll probably go with this one. And then what we'll do is when the beat comes in, we'll go with something a little bit fuller, like this. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. Alright, so let's leave it on this old radio one. Alright, so we're going to use MIDI later to change the models, and I've got the MIDI settings for this generation Loss, so we should be able to do that using the MIDI control on the Octatrack. Super pumped to do that because that's kind of fun. All right, what are we missing? We're missing some ambience, so let's go ahead and not track 2 because I want to try something with track 2. Let's go to track 4 because I'm going to put bass on track 3. I'm going to do some more textures on track 2, so let's go to track 4 and let's make that a flex track, and let's go grab some ambience. Let's see, I know I've got some, there we go. Rain. Alright, let's start with that. Drippy. Too drippy. Too drippy. That's not bad. I want some like birds and like wind and stuff. That's trippy. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, that one's it. We're totally using that one. All right, so we've got that bad boy routed there. One thing before we do anything with that, I want to go and change the settings. I do not want to time stretch that. All right, otherwise it's going to time stretch it from 106 down to 74, and it's going to sound nasty. So let's get the time stretch off of that. Other than that, that's fine. I'm not going to slice it, so we're just going to play that one. Let's put that on trig 1. All right, and it'll play in the background. All right, and that's what the volume is too loud. Again, it's just texture. All right, cool. I like it. All right, so let's go to, I don't want to do bass yet. Let's do drums. All right, so let's go to track 7, which we set up with a through machine for our drums. All right, and let's put a trig on that before I forget, because I always do, so we can actually hear the drums. All right, cool. I'm just gonna program the drums, and then we'll mess with the drum sounds, the drum machines after that. But for right now, let's just lay down a kick. Let's go into record mode here, and let's go 1, 4, 7, 11. All right, so here's something we didn't do. We didn't set up the MIDI settings configuration for this. So this thing is on a BPM of 120. This is on a BPM of 74. So we got to configure the MIDI first. All right, so let's go in here and let's go to control. Those are fine. Let's go to sync. All right, so we want to sync. We want to send transport controls. So yes, all right, which are our play and stop. We want to send clock, which is my tempo, and then we want to send program changes, which is going to change what patterns we're running. So if we're on A1 here, it'll be on A1 here. If we're on A5 here, it's going to be on A5 here. All right, and let's set up the channel for that to be channel 16. All right, so that's good. Let's make sure we hit yes for send. All right, and then the channels, auto channel, we're going to change that to channel 14 because that's the auto channel that's on the analog rhythm. All right, so we're good on the Octatrack. Now let's go over here and go into our MIDI settings. MIDI config, sync. All right, so we want clock receive, yes. Transport receive, yes. And then program change receive, yes. All right, we're not going to send anything out of here, so we're fine there. Port config, let's look at, all right, do I want to receive notes? No, I don't. I'm going to put all of my notes here on the analog rhythm, so let's get rid of that. Do I want to receive CC messages, change control messages? No, I don't, because I'm going to send change control out of here for this, but remember it's going through, so it's actually going to send those back into the analog rhythm, and we don't want that because it might cause some unforeseen things to happen. All right, and then let's look at our MIDI channels. All right, so there's our auto channel on 14, which we changed. Program change in channel. So this is important. We got to change this to channel 16 because that's what we set up on here. Program change out, we're not using that, so we can just leave it as is. But program change in needs to be 16. All right, so we're good. So now if I press play here, yeah, you'll see that the tempo is now 74 and it's actually playing it, which is awesome. All right, so now we need some snares. 5 and 13. Let's creep those up a little bit. All right, so we've got that. Let's add some hi-hats. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and record the hi-hats in so we can get the velocity sensitivity so that it's kind of fluctuated. Usually I'll use a sample and then I'll use like an LFO to emulate an actual kind of someone hitting it at different pressures, but this is perfect. We can just do record quantized, all right, and then let's go ahead and type and get in some. Let's see what I did. It's off by 1 on every single one. Let's fix that. Now let's do it again. All right, ready, play, record. All right, so now let's record some trigs. See what we did. All right, cool. So we got some velocity sensitive trigs in there. That's the great thing about the analog rhythm is it's velocity sensitive pads. All right, so we got that in there, and what I want to do though is I want to make this an open hi-hat. I could use the open hi-hat channel, but that machine sounds a little bit different than the closed hi-hat one, right? You can make them sound the same, but it's so much easier just to set up the decay on this one to be a little bit higher. So it's the same exact symbol, so it sounds a lot better in my opinion. But we're only going to do that. Let's go to our trig. Let's do that just on the second hit. There we go. All right, so let's mess with the volumes here a little bit. It's a little bit loud. All right, let's go to track 1, which is our bass. Let's crank that. All right, so that's a little bit too much decay for me, so let's go ahead and mess with that. All right, I'm gonna turn off the sampler because we're not using it for this specific instance. So let's get rid of the sweep time. And let's get rid of the hold. And let's get rid of the decay. There we go. Turn the tick up a little bit. Maybe mess with the waveform that's being used here. All right. Sounds pretty good, but I think we can clean that up nicely with some lo-fi distortion, because I freaking love that thing. All right, so we're at that. Yeah. And then maybe some plate reverb to glue it all together. All right, back over here, let's look at the compression settings for the entire thing. You can add a little bit of compression to this and make it sound a little bit nicer. Maybe a little punchy. All right, that sounds pretty good. We have a basic drum kit here, but I really want to add some more textures just to kind of liven things up a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use the toms, which I absolutely never use, and we're going to bring in some samples just to make things a little bit interesting. So we'll start here on this bass tom. I'll never ever use that, so let's turn off the synth and let's go to the sample page. And we can see I have no samples in my sound pool yet, so I got to add some. All right, so let's stop that and let's go to the settings, samples. All right, and hold on, let's see where we are. All right, we are in the factory sample settings, right? And we're gonna go to percussion and let's try out some things. We can add that. Bells, not a big bell guy. Not a big bongo guy either. Chimes. No. Yeah, I could find a use for a clap. Some claves. Okay, I don't know what that is, but it's a pretty neat texture. We can use that. No cowbells. What the hell is a darbuka? Okay. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, we're using that for sure. Industrial. Okay. What else? Nah. Yeah, maybe a shaker. Alright, so let's add those. Load them. 7 samples to the project. Alright, let's get out of here. So now, if I go to my sample knob, you can see I have all those things here in my sound pool. Alright, so let's start with that freaking badass, whatever this thing is called. Hell yeah. Alright. Alright, let's record that. See what we did. Is it quantized or no? Yes. All right, let's move it up a little bit. All right, cool. I like that. Let's mess with the amplitude a little bit, lower it. Doesn't need to be all over the place. I'm gonna mess with the pan on this using the LFO. Let's add some reverb. All right, so I'm gonna take the LFO. I wish it had more than one LFO because this thing's got 3 of them and this has only 1 per track and it sucks, but we're gonna make the best we can out of it. So I'm gonna use the LFO on the pan. All right, I'm gonna change the waveform to random and we'll leave it free running. And let's mess with the speed a little bit. So if you're listening in headphones, if you're watching this on TV or on your iPhone, you probably aren't going to get it, but that little gyro thing or whatever it's called is kind of bouncing around the stereo spectrum from left to right, which is kind of freaking cool. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, cool. All right, so we're going to leave that. That one's fine. Let's see what we want to do with this one. Let's add, all right, let's get rid of the synth. Let's add a sample. Let's do something with this clip thing. All right. I like that. All right, let's record that, quantize. See what that looks like. All right, so here's what I want to do. I'm going to set a conditional here so that that only happens on the second. Cool. I like that. All right. That's pretty good there. What else can we do here? Oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and do the same trick on the LFO. Let's pan that bad boy all over the place. Yes. Let's change random. Speed was, I think, 32 and 2. And then let's mess with the depth. You can go really wide. Or you can just go kind of a little bit. Yeah, so it's not as noticeable, but it's still there. Yeah, I love how it bounces. It's just bouncing around my ears, which is awesome. All right, let's mess with the volume of that. Take it down a little bit. Add some reverb maybe. All right, so we messed with the pan on our 2 additional effects. We didn't do anything with the pan on everything else, and it's actually a pretty good exercise. So let's take the kick, all right, and let's just move it over a tiny bit to the left. Barely any, right? We're gonna take the snare, and I'm gonna move it a tiny bit to the right. But hi-hats are usually off to one side or the other, so I'm gonna take the hi-hat track, and we're gonna pan that like significantly. All right, so that's off to the right now. And let's add some reverb to it as well. All right, and let's add some reverb to our snare. Cool. I like that. All right, the hi-hat's a little loud. Let's especially when you compress it, which is obviously going to happen when you do it. All right, cool. I think we're done with the drums. Sounds awesome. I can live with that. All right, so what we're missing is bass, and we're missing some additional sound textures. So I had this idea of using track 2. We'll set it up as a flex. All right, and then we're going to assign, actually we're going to use the exact same sample, the piano sample. All right, and guess, all right, so we're going to use that, but the way I want to use it is I want to reverse it. All right, so let's set up a trig here. Let's see what that sounds like if it's reversed. Alright, maybe not there, but let's copy. Let's try it here and here. Alright, let's listen for it. It's going to come up on page 3. Cool, nice little counter melody there. Even though all it is the piano played backwards, which is awesome. One thing we're not doing though is we're not sending it out to the generation loss, so let's take care of that. So let's go hit Q, crank that bad boy, and then let's take out the regular volume. So now they're both coming through track 5. If we wanted to, we can add a compressor on that track just to gel it even more. Are we doing anything with that? No. So let's add a compressor to it. All right, so we got the compressor on there. That's pretty good. All right, so we've got some textures. We've got our main riff, so to speak, with the piano. Let's go ahead and add some bass. All right, let's get a sample this time. I could actually use the dual VCO on this to create some bass, but if you only have the Octatrack, let's pretend that we just have the Octatrack for bass. So let's go here. I know I've got some good bass samples on this pack right here. Basses, bass guitar. Hell, that one's good. Let's just use that. All right, so we've got our bass. How do I want that bass to go? Alright, I think I have an idea. So, first things first. This, if I remember correctly, is in F sharp. Alright, and this bass is in C, I'm guessing. Yeah, it's a C note. Alright, so what we need to do is we need to adjust the pitch. So C, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp. No. D, C, wait, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp. So 6. I need to go 6. I usually look at me count. I can't count. Jesus Christ. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with, all of these are going to be a bass of 6 up, right? So that should get me to an F sharp note. Doo-doo. Doo-doo. Oh, look at them on page 3. Let's get rid of those. Go to page 1. Let's try that. this note to be shorter though. So let's go to the amplitude, get rid of the release, cut the hold down to like a 1. There we go. All right, so this one too. Cut the hold down to 1. All right, so this needs to go down. No, not the attack, the pitch. Let's take it down like 4. Ooh, no. Let's try 4. There we go. All right. So let's take this page. All right, because we're going to use it twice. I'm going to copy it. So hit page and then copy. Let's go to page 3, hit page, then paste. All right, so we're good on that one. So now we got to do pages 2 and 4. And it's going to be similar. So all right, so I'm going to hold down. So these are going to be in D or E. No, it's going to be in D, right? So it's C sharp, D, so 2 steps up. All right, so let's go mark that down to 2. Mark that down to 2. And this one's going to be 4 again. All right, let's hear that. All right, so we got to take the hold and release out of these bad boys. There and there. We need page. All right, so let's take that, copy, page 4, paste. All right, I feel good about that. Let's play it. Let's mess with it. I'm gonna add a lo-fi distortion to it just because I love it so much. Big fan of reverb on basses, but I feel like it needs something. Maybe just a tad. All right, cool. I'm happy with that. All right, so we've got pretty much a track. All right, now what we need to do is we need to take this little bit of it and actually expand it out and make it into a full track. All right, so let's get out of record mode in both of these so we don't accidentally set off some more trigs. All right, I've got my main sample, textures, I've got my bass, I've got my rain, I've got my input coming in from the generation loss. Nothing going on track 6, we don't need it. Track 7 is my through for my drums, and then track 8 is obviously the master. All right, so I'm feeling good about that. So let's take these patterns and let's copy them over and let's start to change them a little bit and make a song out of it. All right, so we are on pattern 1 right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit function copy, and it says copy pattern. I'm gonna go to pattern 2 and hit paste, pattern 3, paste, pattern 4, paste, and then pattern 5, paste. So typically how I do this, if you've seen my other videos, 1 is usually my intro, 2 is my main theme, 3 is like a chorus, 4 is like a break, and then 5 is an outro. Although sometimes 1 and 5 are the same, it doesn't really matter. I like to have 5 different kind of copies of my pattern for this type of music. So, all right, we've done that on the Octatrack, but if I go to, let's just say, I don't know, pattern 3 and hit play, no drums, right? That's because I haven't done the same thing on the analog rhythm. And since we're sending program changes from here to here, whenever I play pattern 3 on the Octatrack, it's also going to play pattern 3, which doesn't exist right now on the analog rhythm. So let's go ahead and fix that. Let's go over here, and we are at pattern 1, all right? And then let's go do a function copy pattern, and then let's go to 2, paste, 3, paste, 4, paste, and then 5, paste. paste. So now, no matter what I'm playing over here, I'm gonna have drums. All right. Cool. All right. So that sounds good. Now what we need to do is build out our song. All right. So let's go ahead and open up the arranger and hit edit mode, and let's add a bunch of rows. All right. So let's start with, we'll do an intro on pattern 1. Actually, we'll probably do it twice because I like to have just the background kind of textures come in, and then we'll do 2 and then 3 and then we'll do 2 again, and then add a couple more. We'll do 2, 3, 2, 3, and then we'll do 4, and then we'll add 1 or 2 for the outro. So let's do 5 and then 5. Because usually what I'll do is I'll play the outro and then I'll pull pieces away and then I'll kind of play a couple other bars of it. All right, so I think that's really good. So now let's go to our pattern mutes. All right, so for these patterns, I want to mute. So the first one's just going to be the rain, which is track 4. So let's get rid of everything else except for the master. All right, so that's just going to be the rain. All right, and then I want the piano to come in, right? So get rid of everything except for the rain. The piano is on 1, but it's also on 5 because it's got my through track, so I need 1 and 5. All right, so that sounds good. And then we'll go, that should actually be 2. All right. And then pattern 3, which we're going to change in a second, but right now pattern 3, let's just call that our chorus. Pattern 3, and then let's get down to the break, which I like to usually remove the drums. So let's get rid of everything but track 7. Or actually, let's get rid of track 7. We're not using 6, so we can get rid of that too. All right, so that's everything but the drums. All right, and then for pattern 5, which is going to be our outro, it's probably just going to be a reverse of what our intro was, which was the piano and the rain. All right, and then we'll go the last run, it'll just be the rain there. Okay, cool. All right, so let's listen to that. There's our background. Oh, see, it's going to play 4 times, 4 bars. That's way too long. All right, so let's go back and edit that real quick. All right, let's kill a solid 3 bars off of that. So let's just do it for 16. All right, and then what we're going to do on the next one is I'm just going to play a half. So let's do it for 32 steps. And then once it hits pattern 2, then it'll go into the full 4 bars. All right, so yeah, let's try that. There we go. So it should play these 2 bars and then go into the full. There we go. Nice. All right, so we're at pattern 3 now, and I don't want that to repeat. So let's go to pattern 3. All right, let's get out of the arranger. And pattern 3. Play that. All right, so what I want to do here is for this, I think I'm going to reverse everything. So let's go to our source here, and let's just reverse it. Here, here, and lastly, here. And let's kill track 2. Those textures that we were doing, we don't need. We don't need them on this because it's already going to be playing in reverse. Let's hear how that sounds. So the cool thing is the bass still works because it's the same key, it's just reversed. All right, I like it. All right, let's go to 4 and let's hear that. I think for 4, 2, 3. I think I want to do the reverse here as well. All right, so let's go ahead and reverse these. All right, remember, we're going to take the drums out of that in the arranger, so that's fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use MIDI to control the generation loss and the model parameter specifically. And I'll put it up on the screen, but I went and downloaded the Chase Bliss generation loss MIDI manual, right? And it talks about just, you know, kind of how to connect it and whatnot. But the most important thing is we need to know is the CC control for the model knob is CC number 16. All right, and then if I look later, it shows me what the different model values are. All right, so I think we're on like 82, which were our original one, but like somewhere in the 62 to 72 range, these two, the Cam 8 and the Dictatron EX, had a more fuller vibe to it, so that'll bring the bass back in on that sample. So let's try that. So how do we set that up? It's actually not too bad. It's actually not that difficult at all. So pick a track, doesn't matter, because you have 8 audio tracks and you have 8 MIDI tracks. So we're going to use track 1. I'm going to hit the MIDI button on the Octatrack. All right. First thing I need to do is tell it what channel it's on. I've been playing with this generation loss for a while. I happen to know that I set it up on channel 9. So what we do is we have to do is change the channel to channel 9. So I'm going to double tap that. I'm going to double tap source, and then on the MIDI note channel, we're going to change that to 9. And then you have to press the encoder in to get out of it. So that's good. So now we're on MIDI channel 9 over here. All right, let's see what pattern. We're on pattern 1. Pattern 1, we're fine, but pattern 2 is where we really want to be. All right, because pattern 2 is where the theme changes and the instruments come in, and that's where I want to change the value. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to go to FX2 or Control 2, and I'm just going to use an open parameter. So we got CC5 here. So let's go ahead and hit function and then click on that. So that gives me the ability to change the knob. And I have 124 values to work with. Now remember, our MIDI said it was roughly around 62. That was where that better sounding model was for what we're looking to do. All right, so let's also make sure that CC5 is set up to control CC parameter 16. All right, so I have to push the knob or hit function, push the knob in, and then change that down to 16, and then push it. All right, so it's locked in at 16, and if we go back here, it's going to change 16 to 63 when we come in here. So let's add a trig, boom, and right now I need, actually, you know what, I need to set that CC value at 82 because that's where it was. That's where it is right now, and then what we want to do is we want to use the trig to lock in the change to 62. All right, and let's hit play. All right, if this is working and you can hear it, as we change the dial, you can hear the different models. So it's basically the same as if we were changing the dial on the pedal. Nice, so our MIDI's working pretty good. All right, so I think around 82 is where we want it to start. And then when it hits this trig, which I'm on the wrong page, so let's go to page 1 and hit a trig, and then let's change it down to 62. There you go. All right, so cool. So that's a little bit more fuller sound versus pattern 1, which is, gotta set that value. There we go. So the default value is at 82, but once we get to pattern 2, it changes it to 62, which is that, what is that? Cam 8, which is the model. Cool, so let's see how that sounds in the arranger. first audio. Pattern 3. Here comes the break. Up in, I don't know, 5 seconds. Back to the old sounding model using MIDI. And then we should just fade out with the rain on this last step. There it goes. All right. Not my best track in the world, but I kind of like it. And, you know, to be honest, we can sit here for hours and hours tweaking this to get some really, you know, well-produced track going. But, you know, as far as, you know, a song from scratch, you know, in this genre getting done in, I don't know what, 30, 40 minutes, that's pretty good. You know, I mean, most people spend days on their tracks. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Also, let me know if there's other videos you would like to see, because I'm always open for ideas. Thanks for tuning in. And if you made it this long, you are a rock star. I appreciate it. Take care. Have fun making music.